Back in October, a federal judge in California signed off on a settlement worth $150 million, all of it over one engine, a 5.3-liter V8, the small block that went into Silverados and Sierras by the hundreds of thousands. 43,000 owners were covered. The checks went out on December 23rd, 2 days before Christmas, and they averaged better than $3,300 apiece. Sit with that a second. General Motors wrote a check for $150 million rather than keep arguing about whether that engine burned oil. I gave that company 34 years of my life. Flint Truck Assembly. Started on the line, retired a master tech in 2019, and I am telling you that if you walk onto a lot this year with $60,000 in your pocket, there are 3 gas engines sitting in those trucks that will take your money and hand you a repair bill. And there is one that will not. None of this is me guessing. Every bit of it traces back to something you can pull up yourself. Recall filings at the Highway Safety Administration. Court dockets. Service bulletins the manufacturers wrote for their own technicians. I will name them as I go. So here is how this goes. 3 engines to walk away from, then the one I would spend my own money on. And stay with me to the end, because the good one comes with a catch. There are 4 model years of it, where I would rather see you keep driving, whatever is sitting in your driveway right now. Go find your registration before we get there. You are going to want to check a year. One more thing first. Not one of these 3 engines fails in every truck. There are guys out there this morning at 180,000 miles who have never had a bit of trouble. What I am telling you is where the odds sit, and what it costs you when the dice come up wrong. Number 3 is Ford's 2.7-liter EcoBoost V6. I want to be fair to it, because it is a clever piece of engineering. Ford pulls better than 300 horsepower out of 6 cylinders, and it tows more than it has any business towing. Guys love them. I understand why. Here is what the brochure leaves out. In August of 2024, Ford filed a recall with the Highway Safety Administration. 24 V635, 90,736 vehicles. I am going to read you Ford's own words out of that filing, because they are better than anything I could come up with. The engine intake valves may break while driving, which can result in engine failure and a loss of drive power. Break, not wear, not stick, break. Ford went to a harder alloy for those intake valves. Harder sounds better on paper. Harder is also more brittle. Machine one of them a hair off and it can start a crack, and one day that crack runs. The head of the valve snaps off and falls into the cylinder, with the piston still coming up to meet it. I have seen what a drop valve does to an engine. There is nothing to repair in there. You are buying an engine. Now let me be straight with you about how wide that is, because I am not trying to scare you off a truck you already own and like. That recall covers 2021 and 2022, and it covers the 2.7 and the 3-liter together. It is a bad run of valves, not a verdict on every one ever built. If yours falls in that window, the repair is free, and the dealer runs an engine cycle test to find it. What is not free is the oil pan. Ford sealed the pan to the block with silicone instead of putting a gasket in there. They wrote their own bulletin on it, 19-2332. The silicone lets go, and the pan weeps oil. The pan is a cheap part. The labor is not, because the front differential is sitting right in the way of it. A turbocharged direct-injected V6 with a recall for valves that snap and an oil pan sealed with caulk. There are better ways to spend $60,000. Number 2 is my own company, the 5.3-liter V8 with cylinder deactivation. Let me say this part first. The small block Chevy is one of the finest engines this country ever built. I have said that on this channel before, and I will say it again today. The iron is not the problem. What they bolted onto it is the problem. Active fuel management. A few years later, they renamed it dynamic fuel management. Same idea either way. To move the fuel economy number on the window sticker, the computer shuts down half the cylinders while you are just rolling along. To pull that off, Some of the lifters in that engine are not ordinary lifters. Each one has a little spring-loaded pin inside it. Oil pressure comes up through a manifold sitting on top of the engine, shoves that pin out, and the lifter collapses so the valve stays shut. Now, that pin rides in a passage about the width of a pencil lead. Let the oil go dirty. Let it get a little aerated. Let some sludge work its way in there. That pin sticks. And when it sticks, the lifter collapses when it has no business collapsing, and the roller on the bottom of it quits rolling and starts dragging itself across the camshaft lobe. By the time you hear it ticking, folks, that cam is already going. You are not buying lifters at that point. You are buying a camshaft, and you are paying a man to pull the heads off to go get it. Owners report right around 2,700 at a good independent shop. Dealer quotes come in near 4,200, and if the metal got into the oil and went traveling, now you are talking 7,000 for an engine. Here is the part I have a hard time with. GM has written bulletin after bulletin to its own technicians about this. I read them while I was still working. There is one that tells the tech straight out to replace the oil manifold and the entire affected bank of lifters. They have known this failure by name for better than 10 years. There has never been a recall. Not one. The owners are in federal court in Michigan over it right now, and this past March, a judge refused to break that case apart. What those people are asking the court to do is force a recall. The fact that they have to ask is the whole story. And that settlement I opened this with. That was a different problem built on the same idea. That one was the older 5.3 burning oil. This one is the newer 5.3 eating its own camshaft. GM paid up on the first one. On this one, they are still fighting. Number one is the 5.7-liter Hemi with the multi-displacement system. The Hemi earned its name. It makes a wonderful noise, it pulls hard, and there are Hemis running around out there with 250,000 miles under them. But Ram does the same trick GM does. Shut off 4 cylinders while you cruise, make the sticker look better. Same idea, same special lifters. It just fails a little differently, and a little worse. On the Hemi, it is usually the roller bearing down at the bottom of the lifter. There are needle bearings in there, and they come apart. The roller quits rolling, starts skidding, and it wipes that cam lobe flat. Chrysler put this in writing to its own technicians. There is a bulletin that tells the tech to go looking for, and I am quoting them here, excessive camshaft lobe wear, lifter wear, roller failure. That is the manufacturer describing the exact failure in its own words. They call it the Hemi tick. Walk into a dealer with it, and there is a good chance somebody behind that counter tells you it is normal. It is not normal. It is a warning shot, and by the time it gets loud enough to bother you, the camshaft is usually already gone. Dealer quotes on a full cam and lifter job run about 5,300. Book time is 14 to 20 hours. That is not a repair. That is a used car. Now here is something worth the price of admission, and the dealer is not going to volunteer it. The Hemi has a second tick, and it is not the lifter at all. The exhaust manifold bolts snap off, usually at the back of the head. Heat cycles work them until they fatigue and break. And that ticks too. Here is how you tell them apart. The manifold tick is loud as stone cold, and it quiets down as the engine warms and the metal expands and seals itself up. The lifter tick does not care how warm that engine is. One of those is a $700 job, the other one is $5,000. Same noise to an untrained ear. Learn that difference before you go look at a used Ram. No recall on the lifters. A lawsuit down in Delaware, still pending. So look at what we just walked through. 3 engines, 3 companies, and 2 of the 3 fail exactly the same way for exactly the same reason. Not because somebody built them wrong. Because somebody decided to shut cylinders off to move a number on a window sticker, and the parts that do the shutting off are the parts that break. And before anybody accuses me of going soft on Ford here, understand where I am standing. Last year, GM recalled damn near 600,000 vehicles over the 6.2-liter V8, and better than 250,000 of those were Silverados and Sierras. connecting rods and crankshafts. GM's own filing counted 28,000 complaints, and 14,000 of those were people losing power while they were driving down the road. For a lot of those trucks, the remedy was thicker oil. Then in January, the government opened an investigation into whether the fix even worked, because engines kept letting go after the dealer had already done the work. I gave that company 34 years. I am not carrying water for them. So what do I buy? The Ford 5.0, the one they call the Coyote. Start with what is not in it. No turbochargers to fail. It breathes on its own. And in the years I am about to point you at, there is no cylinder deactivation in there at all. No trick lifters. No little pin in a pencil lead passage. The failure we just spent 10 minutes on cannot happen to that engine, and it cannot happen because the parts that do it are not in there. It also has port injectors spraying the back of the intake valves. That sounds like nothing, and it is not nothing. On an engine that only sprays fuel straight into the cylinder, gas never washes across the back of that valve, so carbon builds on it until you are paying a shop $800 to blast walnut shells through your intake. The Coyote washes its own valves. Always has. Now here's the catch I promised you, and this is where I part company with every fellow on the internet who just tells you to go buy a Coyote. There are two windows of this engine I would stay away from. The first is 2011 through 2014. The early ones have soft intake valves. They deform and sink down into the seat, and the Engine Builders Association put a bulletin out about it. They have watched it start as early as 50,000 miles, and they say it is not unusual to open one up and find all 16 intake valves eaten. Ford revised that valve partway through 2013. I would not bet a truck on which one is in there. The second window is 2018 through 2020. For those years, Ford changed how the cylinder walls get made. Instead of pressing a steel sleeve into the block, they spray a coating onto it. There is a class action filed up in Michigan this past August over those trucks burning oil. Owners report a quart every 1,000 miles with nothing at all dripping on the driveway. And I am going to be honest with you about something, because I just spent 10 minutes on this channel telling you exactly what I think of an engine that burns oil. Ford's own bulletin says a quart every 3,000 miles counts as excessive. So a quart every 1,000 is excessive by Ford's own math, and I am not going to pretend otherwise just because I happen to like the engine. So here is the straight answer. If you are buying used, 2015 through 2017 is the one. Ford had fixed the valves and had not started spraying the cylinder walls yet. Steel sleeves, port injection, no cylinder deactivation anywhere in it. That is the cleanest version of this engine that has ever existed, and it is the one I would go looking for. If it has to be new, then 2021 and up, and I will tell you the compromise instead of hiding it. Ford went to a thicker oil for those years, and the complaints fell way off, but they never redesigned that block. And starting in 2021, Ford put its own cylinder deactivation in there. Now, it has not produced anything close to the wreckage the other two systems have, but I am not going to stand here and tell you that a system I have spent the last 10 minutes warning you about turns fine the minute Ford is the one bolting it on. It is the best gas V8 you can drive off a lot this year. It is also a compromise, and you deserve to hear somebody call it one. Now, if you go looking for a used one, here is exactly what I would do standing in that driveway. First thing, open the hood and confirm what you are actually looking at. 5.0 on the coil covers. There are 3 or 4 different engines under those hoods, and the fellow selling it does not always know which one he has. Second, pull the dipstick and then get down and look underneath. You are checking 2 different things. Oil that smells like gasoline or sits low with nothing on the ground under it tells you it is going out the tailpipe. Wet on the valve covers or along the bottom of the pan is a gasket, and a gasket is $300 or $400. Use it to talk the price down. Do not walk over it. Third, and this is the one nobody does, pay $150 to $250 for a compression test and a leak down test at an independent shop, not the dealer that is selling it. Compression should land between 160 and 180 pounds on all 8, and they should be close to each other. Leak down under 10%. If one cylinder is off from the rest, walk away and keep your $200. That test has saved men in my shop from $7,000 mistakes more times than I can count. Fourth, ask for the oil change records and actually read them. 5,000 miles or better. This engine cares about oil. And fifth, if it has a tune on it, a cold air intake, an exhaust, anything the previous owner did in his garage to wake it up, walk away. You do not know what he did or how long he drove it that way. So there it is. 3 engines that will empty your wallet and one that will not, as long as you get the year right. Everything that went wrong in the first 3 came from the same decision. Somebody shut cylinders off to move a number on a sticker, and the parts that do it are the parts that fail. The engine I told you to buy wins because of what is missing from it, not because of what is in it. That will not make any of us a dime, which is exactly why nobody at the dealership is going to explain it to you. Now do me a favor. Tell me what is sitting in your driveway right now and what year it is. If it is a 5.3 or a Hemi, I want to know if you have heard that tick yet, and if you have already paid for one of these, I especially want to hear it, because somebody reading these comments is about to buy the same truck. And if you want the long version of this, the whole business of how to look at a vehicle before you hand anybody money, I put together a book called The Right Ride. It covers the buying traps, the maintenance that actually matters, and which ones to walk away from. I am not going to hard sell you on it. There is a link in the description if you want it. Either way, do me a favor and hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Check the year before you check the mileage. This is Frank.